Good afternoon, and welcome to Boynton Beach's workshop around ARPA Notice of Funding Opportunity. Back in November, the Commission awarded and directed the city to provide a little over $7 million worth of funding through the American Rescue Plan. And we are here today because the Commission has determined a framework and set the framework forward for how we want to expend those funds. And we really want to focus on nonprofits and getting this money out into our community. So just some ground rules for today. We ask everyone who attends in person to sign in the back, which many of you have already done. We also have a virtual audience. John Durgan is here with us. He's the Economic Development Manager who will be monitoring our online services, as well as Carice Lejeune, our ARPA project manager, who will take us through the notice of funding opportunities. Also in the back, if you would like to avail yourself of these documents, are a notice of funding opportunity for our nonprofits and our for-profits, as well as a notice of funding opportunities for our small business grants as well. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Carice for you to take it from here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carice Lejeune, the ARPA project manager for the city of Boynton Beach. We are going to go through two applications this evening. First one that we're going to go through is the sub-recipient grant application for nonprofit and for-profit entities. Then we'll switch over to the sub-recipient grant application for small business grant program administration. And then after that, we will make time for questions and answers. So as I go through each one of these applications, please jot down any questions that may occur so that we can then answer that for you after we go through both the applications. So I'm going to turn off my camera now so that we can focus on the application. Okay, the first application that we are going to be looking at is the not-for-profit and for-profit subrecipient grant application. I do want to, at this point, let you know the differences between a recipient, a subrecipient, and a beneficiary. The city is the recipient of the ARPA state and local fiscal recovery funds. We have the ability from the U.S. Treasury to create sub-awards for sub-recipients. That is what these applications are for this evening. Now, a sub-recipient will then pass through the funds to beneficiaries, the end users of the funds. So if you are looking to be a beneficiary or an end user of fiscal recovery funds, you would not be filling out these applications. You will fill out these applications only if you wish to be considered to be a subrecipient who will then create and manage programming on behalf of the city to put fiscal recovery funds into the hands of beneficiaries in the community. So, as David had spoken about, this is the overview of the money that has come to the city through the U.S. Treasury Department. And then it's also an overview of how the city determined that they were going to use the funds. So there are 5 community assessment priorities that are listed in the beginning of this application. And those 5 priorities or pillars are economic stability and resilience, housing affordability, educational opportunities and job skills development, healthcare access and health outcomes, and criminal justice and safety. At the back of this application in the appendices is a further breakdown of potential eligible uses for each one of those categories. Again, as David had referred to, here's the master spending plan that was approved by the City Commission, and the amount of money in each one of those priorities that we can then issue subawards to sub-recipients. For example, economic stability and resilience, there is $2 million in there that can then be allocated to sub-recipients. Now, this is important because there is a repayment portion of this grant. This is all federal funding, so not only the city as a recipient, but also the sub-recipients are held to the requirements. It's a flow through of requirements of federal funding. So funding for this grant is subject to the federal, state, and local audits. And if a determination is made that the grant funds were used in a manner inconsistent with program guidelines, then the money can be pulled back from the recipients. Also, submission of this application is not a guarantee of funding. There is a vetting process that we will talk about a little bit earlier. And then the notice to third parties that this does not create any rights for any parties, including those that performed work on the project. So just be sure to read through those. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is to fill out this section, your agency name and the project or projects that you are applying for funding. This first box here is an application checklist for the applicants to make sure that you have your application signed and dated by someone who is authorized to do so, either the director or the board chairman. That if you have any tax documents that are applicable, that you've included those. If you have a City of Boynton Beach tax receipt, then you would include that as well. And if you do have a board of directors, a member list, a copy of your latest audit, and all funding sources for this project identified. This is an additional attachment checklist for you to go through, and not all of this will apply to all entities, but if it does apply to you, make sure that you are attaching it to your document. This section is very important, and I think it's the area that the applicants need to pay the most attention to, and this is the ARPA scoring criteria. So all of the applications that we receive by the submission deadline, which is February 4th at 4:30 p.m., will be reviewed and scored and ranked based upon this scoring criteria here. An incomplete application will be rejected, and it will not receive a score or ranking for consideration for funding, and therefore will not be brought forward to the City Commission on March 1st for consideration. So the first one, which is worth 20 available points, is that it responds to the COVID-19 public health emergency. That is what the funding was created for. So the proposed program or project or services that you are applying for funding for needs to respond to an identified need or negative impact caused by COVID. You need to identify how an evidence-based program, service, or other intervention addresses the need or impact. And Appendix B at the back of this application will give you more information on evidence-based intervention. Risk assessment, there is a section in there with questions, and that is how we are going to determine the amount of risk. These, again, are federal funds, and we must be compliant with the terms and conditions of the federal funds from the U.S. Treasury. So you'll have 20 available points for that. Equity, we want to make sure that the applicant provides a description on how this project aims to reach underserved population and or those disproportionately affected by the pandemic. That is one of the most important tenets that has come down from the U.S. Treasury on how we need to use these funds. Number 4 is a future model, sustainability and support. You can get up to 15 points for that. We want to see how the intended outcome of the project and project success will be measured. So you're telling us how you're going to measure support of the project. We also want to know if it's sustainable. After you have utilized all of the ARPA fundings through a sub-award, will you be able to continue this program? Activity management and implementation is worth 15 points. The applicant needs to provide documentation and information showing that the goals and objectives and resources are needed to implement the proposed activity are ready and available. So if you're going to run a program, you need to show in this application that you are able to run the program, whether it is through your administration, through the existing programs you already have, if there are new programs that you're going to implement. We need to make sure that we take into consideration the factors that are going to either accelerate or slow down the applicant's ability to implement the programs or projects that you're proposing. Cost reasonableness and effectiveness, that is worth up to 10 points. And we need to make sure that the implementation of the costs and the budget funding requests that you included are relative to the financial and human resources. So we're looking to make sure that the money you're asking for is allocated to the areas that it needs to be in order to successfully run the programs or services. And then number 7, you can get up to 5 points if you are a nonprofit status. Those would be 5 points. And then I almost forgot, under cost and reasonableness and effectiveness, if you look down here, it says that programs that are requesting support of administrative costs can range from 0 to 15%. So you have a 15% cap on how much money you can allocate to administrative costs. If you are able to keep those costs below 10% of the total amount of your budget, then you will be awarded an additional 1%. So the most that you can gain on this application under scoring and ranking is 101% if you are a nonprofit status. This section, certifications and affirmations, please read carefully through each one of the checked items, because at the bottom, you are going to be asked to sign and date, which is binding that you have read through all of this and that you acknowledge or affirm to all of the information that is listed on this page. So today is our pre-submittal application workshop, and now we are going to get into the actual meat of the application. The first thing we're looking for in section A is general information. So we want, of course, the name of the applicant. We want the name of the person or entity that has either a nonprofit or for-profit tax ID number. You need to check the appropriate box and then provide the tax exempt status from the IRS. So that will be your tax ID number. You will then put the name of the project and the area or location of the project. One thing that you need to be aware of right up here is a federal DUNS number. If you have ever applied for a federal grant before, you will have had to have gotten a DUNS number, which is a Data Universal Numbering System number. It's a unique 9-digit business identifier. You will have to have a DUNS number. If you don't have one, you still have time to apply for one, and I can make that information available to you as to how to apply. So you also want to put your contact person title, preferably either the president or the director of your entity, your email address, and then an additional contact is the person that we would prefer that you put the person who is responsible for preparing the reports, which the entity will be required to submit to the city on a quarterly basis. And then, of course, if you have an alternate email address, your mailing address, telephone, and if you have a fax number. So here on number 5, we want you to tell us which community assessment priority or activity area you are going to be submitting your application under. And if you have programs and projects that fall into more than one of these categories, please check each box for the category that your program, project, or service will fall under. Here we then want to know exactly how much, what is the total amount of funds that you are asking to receive in your sub-award. And then total amount of additional non-ARPA funds for the different projects or services. So if you have a program or you have a service that you're already running and you are receiving some funding that is non-ARPA money, we want you to list that amount here. And then underneath, you want to put the source of the additional funding. If it is cash, in kind, another grant, or donation, and then identify where that additional funding is coming from. We would then like to know how many years has your organization been in operation? And is this project a new service or a quantifiable increase in the level of an existing service? So if this is an existing program or service, go ahead and check this box here that it's quantifiable increase. Number 9 has the applicant received state or local government funds in the past 12 months before you're applying for this. And if you have, then we ask that you put down what is the funding source that you've received. And then can you run this project, program, or service without the ARPA funds? Will this project continue after the ARPA funding ends? So number 11 is where we're looking to see, is it sustainable? The program, project, or service that you're asking for money for, are you going to be able to continue running it after the ARPA money is spent? Now we get into section B, which is the proposed project, and here we would like a project description. There'll be other places further down in the application where you can expand on your project. Here we just need a very concise description. If you can put it in 3 sentences, that would be wonderful. We may be using that sentence for future publications if your application is approved. Number 3, we're going to talk about the strategy. So here we have, again, the community assessment priorities, and you need to check which one in this box that you are asking for funding for, and then what is the program or project, and the metric that you're going to use to measure success. So you have to build into your program, your project, your service, metrics that are going to measure the desired outcome. So if your service is to provide meals to elderly shut-ins within the community, then, for example, you might say that your metric is the number of people that you are sending or bringing food to, and the desired outcome is a number or a percentage of the amount of people that you are providing this service to. So that's just an example. Number D is your project summary. This is where you can give us a detailed description of your proposed project, activity, service, or program that you would like to have funded. You can give additional sheets if there's not enough room for you to put it all in the application. You can provide additional information. I would suggest that you put it on a Word document and that you email it directly to me at the time that you put your application. You need to be very specific about how the ARPA funds are proposed to be used. For example, a plan of action explaining in detail how the agency and who within your agency will be implementing the activity. If you have a person who's going to do intake for the beneficiaries to receive, perhaps you have an application that a beneficiary who wants to receive funding will fill out. Who is going to intake? What are the procedures for that? What documentation are you requiring for those beneficiaries to provide you so that you can determine whether they are eligible under the program to receive funding? Then we want to know how the program fits with the overall mission of your organization, and how will it impact your current operation? If it's a program you already have running, is this going to be expanding it? Is this a new program that you're going to be able to reach more people or a different demographic? So we want to know how it's going to impact your current operation. Are you going to need additional people to run this expanded or new program? How does the program mitigate or respond to the negative impacts of COVID-19 public health emergency? If I could, I'd put a giant asterisk next to this one. This is very important. We need to know that it directly mitigates or responds to the negative impacts of COVID-19. Does this program serve disproportionately impacted population? Again, this is one of the major tenets of the American Rescue Plan Act. So if you are going to be serving an impacted population, let us know if they are disproportionately impacted as a population, a community, or if it's in a qualified census tract. And the qualified census tract is based on HUD requirements. Will the program income be generated from this activity? This is important. If you are going to charge a fee to a beneficiary of your program or service, then we need to know how the program income will be spent. Where will the program take place, and is it within the City of Boynton Beach municipal boundaries? We would ask that you would give us the exact location or area and indicate that it is within the municipal boundaries. And are you working with other organizations in a cooperative effort on the program? And if you are, please list the other organizations and what their role or responsibilities will be in the service or the program. And this is something that I know is highly desirable now in a lot of federal grant funding. You will not be penalized if you are working alone as a single entity, and you will also be considered for funding if it is a cooperative effort. So either or, we just want to know whether or not you are working singly or if this is a cooperative effort with other nonprofits or organizations. Okay, goals, objectives, and activity measures. So in the above box where you had to put your metrics and your desired outcomes, in this area, you're going to break that down for us. You're going to tell us what your number one objective is. And to understand the goals and objectives, a goal is the overarching concept or outcome that you want to see achieved. And the objective is more of a breakdown of what are the actions or activities that will be performed in order to get to that goal. Here, what resources do you need and what resources do you already have available? And what is the start date and duration of that particular goal? So for each goal, you can have 1, 2, 3 objectives, but you're not limited to that. If you have more than 3 objectives, you can add it on an additional sheet of paper to send to us electronically. And you have room here to put 2 goals, but again, if you have more than 2 goals, you can go ahead and submit that as well. Project budget. We would like for you to list all of your anticipated expenditures and then let us know if it is a cash, in-kind, other, or donation beside each amount under other project funds. So here is the money for these different categories that you are requesting from the city, from the ARPA funds. In this column, if you are receiving any other funds for these different items, then please go ahead and put whether it is an in-kind or cash or grant or donation. And then here is the total project budget for the project or the service or the program that you're going to be running. If you need additional information, if there's different items in your budget, then you can add those. If there's not enough room here in this application, again, you could submit that separately. And then we want to know, again, what community assessment priority. So if it's more than one community assessment priority, then we want to know what is the ARPA funds requested, other funds, and the total project. So you need to relate what you're putting up in this section to where it fits in one of these categories. Applicant information. So there's some very detailed questions here. I'm not going to read through all of them. If you have any questions about any of these, you can ask them tonight, or you can email those questions to me, and my email is at the front of the application. This section is very important. This is a risk assessment for your individual organization, entity, or individual that is requesting the funding. Because these are US Treasury federal dollars, we are required by the US Treasury as the recipient to perform risk assessments on any sub-recipient being considered for a sub-award. So read through all these very carefully and answer them as best you can. Please do not leave any blank. If something does not apply, put NA for not applicable and maybe a brief description of why it's not applicable to your situation. Now for this one here that talks about is the program or project evidence-based intervention with strong or moderate evidence? If you go to Appendix B at the back of the application, you will see the definitions for strong, moderate, and preliminary evidence. And then Appendix C will donate areas where the subrecipients will be required to report the total amount of funds that are allocated to the evidence-based interventions. And also whether the projects are primarily serving disadvantaged communities. And we'll look at that appendix before we're done. Conflict of interest, very self-explanatory. Read through it, check yes or no, and answer the questions. And then we go to the drug-free workplace certification. This is a self-certification. You do not have to provide us any documentation, but read through this, and if the answer to all of these are yes, then we just ask that you sign and have a witness at the bottom. Okay, so here's the appendixes. These are the eligible uses. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just some examples of eligible projects and programs under the different community assessment priorities. If you have a question on whether or not you have an eligible project or program under the different priorities, you can give us a call at the city at the number at the front of the application, and we will, or you can email us. And either way, we will have the question research, and then the question and the answer will be posted directly to the ARPA webpage on the city's website. Now here, Appendix B, this tells you about evidence-based intervention. So if you are required to have evidence-based intervention based upon the type of program or project that you're doing, this tells you what it is that we're looking for. And then these are the different expenditure categories. So whatever your project and program is, it will have to fit into one of these categories. And you see we have categories under public health, under negative economic impacts, under services to disproportionately impacted communities, and then there's an administrative. So for example, if we take housing support, services for unhoused person, you'll see that there's an asterisk and I guess a little TP. That means that for this particular category, you will have to, number one, let us know if it is a evidence-based intervention, and then number two, if it is servicing a disproportionately impacted population, community, or area. So that is the application for nonprofit and profit sub-recipients. Now I'm going to, let's see, this one. Okay, so this one is very similar. This is the application for small business assistance program administration. This is not the small business assistance program. So small businesses who need assistance, you do not apply for this. We are looking for an entity to administer the city's small business assistant program. So they will be receiving ARPA funds from the city as a subrecipient, who will then be administrating a small business assistant program, and those small businesses will then be the beneficiary. So just running through this, again, I'm not going to spend too much time. It's a lot of the same information that you saw in the first application. Just to go through here, the things that have changed is the scoring criteria. There is less scoring criteria for this particular application. And you can see it here. There's a lot of the same scoring criteria, but less than the first application. Certifications and affirmations are the same. And the program description is telling you exactly what this small business grant program is. And then we get into, again, a lot of the same information that we're asking that we also asked in the first. Now this one, you can see all of the boxes below economic stability and resilience are X'd out because the Small Business Assistance Program is a program that falls directly under the economic stability and resilience community assessment priority. So you only have one place to fill it out, but we do need to know your metric and your desired outcomes. Again, your project summary, and then the goals and objectives that we're asking for, the project budget, all of that remains the same. But again, all of this is X'd out. We only need you to fill out that one section of economic stability and resilience. And again, we have the risk assessment questions that need to be completely filled out, the conflict of interest. And here is the appendix for eligible uses. The only eligible uses under this application are small business grants and loans and supporting businesses that did not qualify for federal programs. So the guesswork is taken out of this one. We need someone to administer the city's small business grant program. Another definition of evidence-based interventions. And again, the expenditure categories. Now, after this section, what you will be getting into is the actual program for the Small Business Assistance Grant. So this will tell you everything that you'll need to know about the actual program you will be being asked to administer. So with that, I am going to turn off my share screen and we can take questions at this time.
Thank you, Carice. Are there any questions from anyone here in the chamber? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Monica Cleckley. My question is if I want to be an end user or a beneficiary, am I the right person to be here to do the application, the first application we spoke about?
No, we are looking for sub-recipients, organizations, nonprofits or for-profit organizations that are going to administer programs to beneficiaries. So, for example, if you need rental assistance, then we're looking for a sub-recipient who is going to take a sub-award of money from the city and then they are going to turn around and make that rental assistance available to a beneficiary. So if you are a beneficiary looking for the rental assistance, this is not the application that you want to fill out. We're looking for a sub-recipient organization who is going to run that type of program for the city. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, you clarified it. So I guess what I did mean was that, for instance, I have a medical center. I want to be able to get the funding to provide COVID vaccines, to provide COVID testing. So I'm the subrecipient. My end user is the community that I would service. Is that correct? Okay.
Absolutely.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
That is correct. Well, we have another one, Carice. Hold on.
Okay.
My name is Yulimar Trumbo from the Hispanic Entrepreneur Initiative, and my question is related to the timing regarding the delivery of service. Is this within a time frame, 1 year, 2 years? How does it happen?
Okay, so on March 1st, we will be bringing ranked sub-recipient applications to the City Commission for them to make a decision. After the City Commission has determined who the sub-recipients are to receive the sub-awards, the next step will be creating a sub-award agreement for the sub-recipient. Once that agreement is in place, we will then know the beginning date and the end date of your program. So you have the ability to run your program with the funds allocated to you from the city from anywhere starting April 1st until December 31st of 2024. That will be the drop dead date for expending any ARPA funds. So if you want to run your program for a year or for 3 years, just make that very clear in your application. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you, Carice. Let me
Okay.
just remind anyone within the chamber, if you haven't signed in, please do so for the record. Do I have any other questions here?
So my next question is in order to be proactive and prevent being rejected and not knowing as we're going through our processes of doing our applications, can we have a dialogue back and forth with someone? I heard you say answers will be posted to a website, but is that going to be for every question or is it just for certain things? Like if I need help as I'm doing it, I want to make sure I'm not going to get kicked back or miss my opportunity. Is there a resource for me?
I definitely understand. We will be taking questions, and as long as we have the opportunity, we will post them the very first day. If not, they will be posted the very next day. We will make answering these questions a priority and posting them on the website. The reason that we're doing this way is because if you ask me a question and I give you an answer, but another applicant has the same question, but they didn't get the same answer, then it's not fair and equitable for all applicants. So we will take whatever question we get and we will then post it to the website so all applicants will then know the answer to that particular question. So if you give us a question, say by email on Monday, we will post the answer to that question either that Monday or that next Tuesday. So the recommendation is to check the website at the end of Monday and then check the website. If your answer is not there, check again on the end of Tuesday. And it will be there. And if for whatever reason you do not see that then you need to give me a call at the telephone number on the application to find out why your question wasn't posted. This is very important. We want to make sure that all the applicants have every opportunity available to them to do the best job they can filling out this application. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Carice. We have another one here. Hold on.
Hello, my name is Sandra Watson, and I just have a question as far as your nonprofit. If you are a new nonprofit, do you have like a criteria of how long a nonprofit would have to have been established before they can apply for this?
No, we're not putting time restrictions on how long you've been a nonprofit or how long you've been in business or, programming. What we're going to be looking for as far as that is your budget and the risk assessment. So when you read through those questions and you see the type of questions we're asking for in the risk assessment, that's going to let us know whether you have the capability to manage and properly distribute federal funds to the requirements of the U.S. Treasury. So, and the reason we're doing this is because you may have a brand new nonprofit, but you may have employees of your nonprofit that have a lot of experience dealing with federal funds. So we do not want to take away that opportunity from a new nonprofit that may know how to manage federal funds. But in that same vein, if we have a new nonprofit who has never managed federal funds and do not have the capabilities, as will be proven through the risk assessment, then they may not be as qualified as a nonprofit who's been doing this for a long time. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you, Carice. Seeing no more questions from the chamber, we will now open it up to our virtual audience. John, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have a few questions here that I'll read off here. The first one is for Pastor Davis. The question is, are capital projects allowed?
They are not disallowed. They will be considered by the city commission based upon the ranking and scoring of the application. So if the application ranks and scores, to a satisfactory level, then the commission will be able to look at that, and then they can decide if they want to fund a capital project. Under the ARPA Treasury guidelines, capital projects are allowed, but it will be a decision by the city commission on whether or not they will fund a capital project.
Thank you, Carice. Another question for Pastor Jovan Davis. Can a proposal include components in several categories? Good question.
Yes, it can. So if you are a nonprofit and you have programs and services that fall within more than one category, we ask that you check the box for each category and then just elaborate on what those programs and or services are in the body of the application.
Perfect. And we have one more question than a few hand raised. The next question is from Spence Halperin. And the question is, for the first application, I think they're referring to the one with the 5 funding categories. Are there maximum grant amounts that can be requested? What will be the average amount of the awards?
The average amount of the awards will be determined based upon the applications that we get. As far as the cap, in the application under the master spending plan, you will see the spending cap for each category. For example, the economic stability, $2 million. The city commission at this point in time has directed that only $2 million will be spent in that category. Now, if that may or may not change depending on how many applications we get in each category, if the city commission decides they want to reallocate funds from one priority to another based on the amount of applications we get in that specific category, then that will be a decision made by the city commission. At this point in time, however, the cap is in the master spending plan, how much money will be allocated to each priority.
Thank you, Carice. We do have one more question from Nicole Zabilski. The question is there a page limit on the project summary section attachment? Can any other application sections be attached, or do you want them in the body of the application form?
We would like it in the body of the application form. However, we understand that you may have additional information that will benefit your application. So yes, you can submit additional pages within reason. Yeah, please don't send me 10 pages of a project description, but if you run out of room and you have a few more important points you want to make, by all means, you can attach a separate piece of paper.
We do have some more questions coming in. One is from Kathleen Hurd. She asks, does the nonprofit need to be physically located in Boynton Beach?
From the last conversation that we had at the public meeting with the commission, they want to make sure that the funds are benefiting the community of Boynton Beach. So you can still be considered if the physical address location of your entity is outside of the city boundaries. Just make sure in the application that you identify where the community is that you will be servicing with your program or your project.
Perfect, thank you. The next question, again from Pastor Davis, how expensive or what are you expecting the reporting requirements to be? For example, monthly, quarterly?
We will be looking for quarterly reporting. As a sub-recipient, again, the treasury requirements will flow through the city, who is the pass-through entity, to the sub-recipient. The city has to report quarterly to the U.S. Treasury, so we will ask that our sub-recipients also report quarterly. However, based on the risk assessment, we do have the ability to ask for additional reporting within those quarters. But for right now, quarterly reporting is what we're going to be requiring.
And the next question is again from Kathleen Hurd, and she asks, will there be a fillable PDF document available to complete?
Yes, John, I think you already put that up on the website, right?
Yeah, so the PDF is on the website. It's not fillable for everybody who does open it up. You will have to have Adobe to fill it out. But staff has been working on creating an online application through another format that might be easier and more accessible to individuals. We don't have a timeline or date when that will be posted. We have staff working on that currently, but that is another option that we're discussing for applicants that we can get up sooner rather than later. But as of right now, this is the only document we have currently available on the website to fill out a proposal. All right, I'm going to see if there's any hands raised online currently. I do see Kathleen Hurd's hand raised, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute her.
Are you there, Kathleen?
Yes, hello. I think you've
Hi.
answered all of my questions. I'm here to represent Florida Outreach Center for the Blind. Our training center is located in Palm Springs, but we do provide services to visually impaired people who live within the bounds of Boynton Beach. So that's why I asked that question. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And thank you for this opportunity.
You're very welcome.
Okay, Carice, we do have another hand raised. Nicole Zabilski. You are self-muted. Oh, her hand is no longer raised.
Oh, okay.
We do have another question that did come in. Again, this is from Pastor Jovan Davis. If all the funds aren't dispersed when approved by the commission, will there be another round of submissions? Or are you trying to exhaust all the funds now? If no, will awardees be able to reapply?
That is a very good question, and that will be based on the direction of the city commission. Decision has not been made about that at this time, but if we do wind up having funds left over, we will be going back as staff to the city commission and asking for their direction on how they would like the rest of the funds dispersed.
We do have another hand raised, Ms. Cassandra Corbin Thaddeus.
Yes, so can you hear me? It's okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Super. My question is, if you have a program that you are proposing that crosses the community assessment areas, will you also need to have multiple identifiers, I guess, across those community assessment areas, if that makes sense?
I think I understand. Because your proposed program would reach not only people in Boynton Beach, but I'm assuming in neighboring communities as well. You're asking if the metrics that you show should be just for Boynton Beach, or should it be for the entire area you're serving? Did I understand that?
No, I'm saying if it's like across economic and also across the educational community assessment areas, if it crosses the categories.
Oh, yes, yes. We encourage you to put as many metrics in there as you feel will show you whether or not your program is successful. So if you have more than one metric, or if you have a program that falls into different categories, please, we encourage you to put as many metrics in the different categories as you're willing to measure.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I don't see any more hands raised or questions at this time.
Thank you, John. I will ask anyone here in the chamber, any last questions for Carice? Carice, did you have any last comments for us?
I just wanted to thank everyone for attending, either in the chamber or virtually with us tonight. We're here to help. So if you have any questions, please either email or call. Again, we will get those posted on the website as soon as physically possible. And we just wish everyone the best of luck. And thank you so much for caring about the community and the city of Boynton Beach and being willing to run these services and programs on behalf of the city.
Thank you, Carice. I will just, as we close out, I will just review the schedule one last time. Today is our pre-application workshop. Proposals are due again on February 4th, 2022. We intend to internally review each of these proposals and have our evaluations completed by February 15th of 2022 and present those recommended awards to the City Commission on March 1st of 2022. So we look forward to having each and every one of you participate. And it's really important, as Carice said, for the city to have you as our partners. And we thank you for coming out tonight and spending time with us. And we look forward to seeing your proposals. So thank you very much and have a good night.